Hey, welcome back to another edition of Kicks Over Coffee. I'm your host, Matt Priest. I'm drinking sweet tea in my Portland Timbers glass that I got at a happy hour at Providence Park with a cup of sugar, brewed like my mom used to make it until we all figured out sugar was so terrible for us. I am joined by one Bill Snowden, who's probably one of my oldest friends in the industry. Bill, all the way live in Seattle, Washington. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great. So let's compare notes here. You know, I'm a Seattle guy, which means my coffee is not simple. So this is a flat white over ice, and it actually makes you happy because these are the little pods they come in. It brings you just little bits of happiness. Look at that. See, there you go.
Nifty.
That's free Nespresso advertising right there.
I love it. Well, we always have
Cheers.
text conversation. Cheers. Absolutely. You and I always have text conversations, and then we were talking on the phone yesterday, and we were just having a conversation about inventory levels and the movement of goods and all the pressures that our companies are under. And you're a guy, you've worked at Nordstrom, you've worked at Topline, you've worked at Steve Madden, you've had your own brand, Snowden Brothers, Jane in the Shoe. You know, you've worked in the tech scene at this point. So you've been kind of throughout the supply chain. And so I wanted to try and replicate our conversation over Kicks Over Coffee so that people can be thinking critically about what footwear companies are facing right now. And then what does that mean we're going to be facing in the fall when it comes to inventory and the like. So if you're sitting back and you're advising a shoe company right now, Bill, what are 3 things that you think companies are having to deal with right now that we're not really aware of?
Well, first of all, you made me feel old when you said all those things that I've done and that we've known each other forever because we're two young guys.
Junior.
We're two young guys. I am a junior. That's right. So let's just level set there for a second. Yeah, I think what we do today, you know, Matt, our view and our space is, you know, online marketplaces and brand protection, and we talk to brands across a lot of different consumer verticals, right? And what you're hearing today in the press is kind of pretty accurate in terms of what's going on with consumer spend. And, you know, you have certain consumer segments that are down 85-90% in business, right? That's more the case than the people that are fortunate enough to be in grocery and health and beauty, and some of those that are actually on the uptick. But yeah, we have a lot of conversation with brands about what am I going to do? I have a ton of inventory locked up in brick and mortar spaces. That business is trending at 0 today. And my online business may or may not be up, which is interesting, right? Why would your online business not be up? Part of that's due to the marketplaces, right? People like Amazon that are so swamped today, they, you know, prioritize PPE goods. And so if you're in a non-essential product, your inventory is sitting in the warehouse, or they don't allow you to bring it into the warehouse, right? So I think that's kind of the dilemma people are facing today is like, I got product I can't touch, and the product that I can ship, I can't ship. What's going to happen when this all gets kind of released? So that's really the majority of our conversations today.
Yeah. So if you think about, you know, the different channels that product could get released in, right? You have your brick and mortar's out right now, as we all know. You have your e-commerce space that may or may not be successful, as you just indicated. There's, you know, before all this happened, some of the off-price channels were on fire, the Marshalls and the TJ Maxxes of the world.
The Rosses, right?
Rosses, but they don't have e-commerce presence. They don't really have a release valve, so they're pretty much up to the gills in product. People are donating product to the front lines of the virus fight, and maybe to places like Souls for Souls and 210 and others. But where else where else can you put this product right now as we navigate through the Great American Retail Shutdown?
Yeah, I think the issue is that you can't put it a lot of places. I think the issue really becomes, what do you do with it when you can put it somewhere?
Right.
So the stuff that's sitting in the stores you can't access, you know, some of the retailers, you know, have fill from store. So that's great, right? Whether it's Best Buy or Home Depot or things like that. But really people are talking about, what do I do when things start opening up? When's it going to open up? What's going to open up? And then how do I get it into consumers' hands? You know, I think the other thing you're looking at in online marketplaces today, and this is kind of where people get really creative, is that, let's take Amazon, for instance, right? I'm a Seattle guy, and, you know, we hear a lot about Amazon. Brands today in their own websites will jack up the prices so they don't win the buy box. So the 3P suppliers that ship out of their own warehouses win the buy box, which then allows them to ship the goods and the brand to ship back to the 3P supplier. So I think there's things like that you can be really creative with, right? In terms of trying to figure out how to get people in products' hands. And that's just sitting down at a whiteboard and saying, okay, where's the connection point? If this is the connection point, how do I get my product to that spot?
Right.
Not super complicated, right? But you kind of just have to be, and fortunately today you sit at home, I have it's not, that's actually not a whiteboard behind me, it's my white walls. But if that was a whiteboard, that would be filled with, lines and arrows and dots and clouds and all that kind of stuff to move stuff around. But that's just one of the way that I've heard lately that, people are talking about. The other way is people are thinking about putting their core products, maybe doing some exclusive with some of their key retailers.
Okay.
Because I think the other issue is going to be what happens to price when things open up again, right? Is it going all straight to promotion? Can we just give certain, our top 5 retailers, each of them split our top 5 shoes, one to each retailer. That way they can say, hey, I have an exclusive. Maybe that'll help prop up prices. Maybe helps traffic to those retailers, right? I mean, that's going to be a concerted effort between the brands and their top 5 retailers, for example. I thought that was a pretty creative solution to the problem.
Yeah, that does sound creative, because I think, like you point out, the curtain has gone down on retail, and then the economy's taken a beating. And, we had a record number of people again file for unemployment. Over 21 people are unemployed at this point. The unemployment rate will go up. And so when the curtain is lifted and we're back to business, not everyone's going to have the same amount of cash in their hand that they had when this all started. And how highly promotional do you think the environment will be for footwear companies in the U.S.?
Unfortunately, nobody can wave a magic wand and turn a sandal that's sitting in the stores today into a boot, right, in September.
Right.
I know that some people are looking at working with their suppliers, their factories, and saying, hey, let's pack and hold some product that we think we could sell next year. Not a great use of cash. Cash is cheap today to finance. So that's one opportunity for people, right? It's just 2 things. I was on a conference call yesterday and heard from some pretty intelligent financial people that they're looking at a rebound depending on age, right? What's your cohort age? So Gen Z coming out is different than the millennials, different, than the boomers and all that stuff.
Right.
I think that's a pretty interesting point of view today when you look at who your end consumer is and what do you project the trajectory of that consumer to be, not the macro trajectory, right? But the micro trajectory. Who's buying your shoes or your product, and how are they going to come out of this? So I thought that was an interesting point of view. And just this morning, I talked to somebody, with a company that furloughed over 10,000 people. And there's some internal projections that kind of only say 20% of those people come back, on the low end. On the high end, it's 80%, who really knows? But I think you're totally right. It's everybody's going to have a different spend and a different, who's going to want to touch a shirt and try on a shirt today.
Yeah, that's a great question, Bill. And it's interesting.
What are you going to do with that?
Yeah, I don't know what you do with that. I mean,
I don't either.
Market how you fumigate your retail store.
Yeah.
Hours. I don't know.
Yeah.
You have no contact pizza delivery right now. Can you get no contact? I mean, it pushes you back into the e-commerce space, I think, for a lot of people who are uncomfortable in that environment. But
I think a lot of it does. I think, you look at some of the retailers, for example, again, a Seattle guy, I'll use Nordstrom as my example. They opened up those local stores.
Yeah.
And, when you look at the high-end designer brands, you go to those stores, and they just have sometimes just one piece of product, and you have to ask for your size, right? And they bring it out, and it's, maybe it's in a bag, maybe it's, kind of got a tag on there that says it's been sanitized. I think those are the kinds of things. The whole experience is going to change, right? I mean, even the California governor said, "Hey, you want to go to a restaurant? I'm going to take your temperature. You're going to wear gloves. You're going to have a disposable menu, and your server probably will have a mask on."
But
and I'm like, "Well, I can get that. I can get that at home."
I will have to say,
not the food, but
as you were talking about that dynamic with Nordstrom about bringing out product in a bag, there's an exclusivity. It's back to the sit and fit model, which you have some experience in as a
grew up in that
young man. And right now, before this happened, what was hot? It was the off price. It was the racks. It was the It was the
self-service
through all different types of products that 20 other people had touched in the last hour. And the pendulum's going to swing back towards the sit and fit model, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, anything that's going to prevent the consumer from having to touch something that somebody else has touched.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal. And the people that can provide that level of service and that level of attention, I think you're seeing that online today, right? I look at the brands and the retailers that I follow and on the mailing list, they're sending me information, which is, hey, how do you live inside today? So again, I'm a Seattle guy, I'm a homer. REI, I get these things from REI.
Email. I got
Did
it.
you, right?
I
Right.
did.
So, Eric is my neighbor, right? And he sends me this email and says, hey, why don't you turn your living room into a campground? How would you do that?
Yep.
And I think just that kind of messaging, the ability to speak directly to your micro consumer, not to the macro, the people that are buying your product, how do you find and reach them? The other thing, man, I told you yesterday too, that I've invited you guys to, we have a webinar on next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And we're really looking at analyzing consumer spend down to the county level and how that's been impacted by, LYTY, and then from the introduction of the virus and the cases as they've grown, how that's impacted spend. Because, as a retailer, you have a store in a county.
Right.
You want to know what's going on at that level of detail. So, you can use data, you can use analytics, you can kind of just use some common sense around trying to find ways to talk to that person, not that neighborhood, right? You just need that person that's buying your product. So
it's interesting, going back to the whole notion of age being the determinant factor on how people will come out of this, what generation you're part of. It takes me back, actually, the Shoe and Show podcast this week. The episodes this week is about a Deloitte report, really challenging. This is all before the impact of the virus, but it was challenging this notion that millennials like experiences and really putting us in these boxes. And they kind of threw all that out and said, what's the determinant factor when it comes to purchasing behaviors and experiences and where you spend your money is your age. And not only your age, I should say, but how much money you have. So you might be a millennial that has a lot of money. You're going to behave more like a boomer. You're going to behave more like a Gen Xer. And if you're a Gen Xer that's struggling to buy and you're a gig economy guy, you're going to behave more like a millennial. And so the lines are blurred more on how much money you're bringing in than necessarily what segment of society you fall in. So as with any data, you can slice and dice it any way you want. But one of the things I want to pivot to, Bill, is fall, right? It's a pendulum. We have a ton of spring product. We don't know what to do with it. It's jamming all the kind of avenues of distribution. What are we going to see in the fall? Are we going to see the lack of product, premium on product? Are we going to have shortages? What are your expectations?
Well, it's probably going to depend on how much you have in the pipeline now, right? So, from a spectrum view across all of our consumer verticals, right? Not just footwear and apparel, but you look at certain categories that have long lead times. Those decisions have been made or are being made now. And some of those decisions with furloughed workers aren't getting made. So now all of a sudden the brand takes on the responsibility of, do I want to go out on a limb and say, hey, this is the product that people are going to want to buy, even though I don't have a buyer to talk to today. I think what we can learn, I think some of the things that we're talking about internally in our company is on the countries like China that are reopening today, what are they seeing from a spend perspective and how that consumer comes back? Now, not perfect, right? But right now in this world, there's nothing perfect, right? We know nothing except what somebody's walked before us. So they've been through it. They've been through the lockdown. They're coming out. What are you seeing there? So not only from a spread perspective on COVID, but how are you seeing those consumers come back and spend on what and doing what and going where, right? There was a big exodus out of Wuhan, right? The first couple of days, you saw people lined up to get out of there. Are those people that didn't live there that got stuck there? Or are they people that live there that know there's something else going on that are going to just get out as far as they can? It's really hard to say right now what that is. We're kind of diving in, doing some of our own research on that to look at the spend. I think in spend in general, you're finding less transaction, higher overall ticket prices, right? People are, I don't want to say hoarding because that's a bad word, but they're just like my family, we go once a week to the grocery store. I put my designer, polka dot mask on that used to be my daughter's pajamas.
Right.
And, I just stock up for the week, right? I've driven a mile in my car. I haven't gotten gas for a month. I've barely seen anybody besides my family, except through, Zoom happy hour or Zoom birthday.
Yeah.
Boy, I wish I had the magic answer there for you, but
Yeah.
we're going to look at spend as our answer.
Well, I mean, as you were talking about having the example of what China's doing to open back up, I mean, that's one of the benefits of being a global brand, and what we've seen some of the strength of Nike in this crisis, and to a lesser degree,
Exactly.
some of the global brands, because they have the data, they see what's going on in China, so they know how to prepare here in the US as to the impact on retail. And that's why their stock price is still near $90 in spite of the volatility, because they have a plan, they can execute against that plan, they have the data to back it up.
Right. No, I think that's totally what you're going to have to do, right? Is figure out who's been down that path before you. I think, again, essential products versus discretionary products. I look at my own income or my own spend, right? My discretionary spend's down 50%.
Right.
In March, right? And it's trending the same for April. Even though just in the room next to me, my wife's probably on the computer, right? Looking for something for the kids or herself, or trying to figure out how to navigate over the next couple months. But you just can't physically buy enough inventory online to offset what's lost in 100 stores, 500 stores, 1,000 stores, right? It's just not possible.
No,
so I know we're pivoting a little bit off the question of what's going to happen in fall, but
hey man, anywhere our fun conversations take us, even in crappy times. Well, Bill, this has been awesome for me, because every time I talk to you, you have such deep knowledge into the industry, and you've been at every kind of stop along the way. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to record this so we can get it out to the masses, so people can be
for sure
thinking about what to look forward to. Any closing thoughts or words of wisdom you want to impart on the broader footwear community?
Yeah, I think two things I would tell you. Number one is, Matt, we belong to about 10 associations, and I want to tell you guys personally and professionally are doing a great job trying to bring information to people, because right now in times of chaos, unknowing is part of the evil, right? It's
right.
Hey, how is my brand doing compared to somebody else's brand? How is my vertical doing to somebody else's vertical? What's going on? And so there's this deep seated need for data and information. So I just shout out to you guys, because of the 10 association, I'd put you guys at the number one spot in terms of being thoughtful and considerate and progressive around trying to search out information from everywhere and helping people understand how to do their business online with the product development stuff you guys do and stuff like that. So kudos to you guys, because you guys are a big solve for that problem. Number two, I think what's interesting to me, coming out of the footwear space into tech, I talked through 7 different consumer verticals. The answers are different in every vertical to some degree. And the suggestion I would give to everybody is go talk to somebody in a different vertical and have the conversation. And if you can bring multiple people into that conversation and make it more of a round table, which is, hey, here's what I'm experiencing. Oh, this guy's like, oh, I've done that before. I've seen that before. Here's what we did. Right now, I think, competitors and competition are falling away to cooperation and community, which to me, those are 2 big radical shifts in the environment. So right now, take advantage of that and talk to people about how do we cooperate? How do we form community? How do we make things better for everybody? Because one consumer vertical making it and the other 6 not making it, we're all not going to make it. So I think people's mindset really has changed around, while I'm a competitor with you on the shelf, I need to cooperate and you're part of my overall broader community. So let's just talk. Yeah.
Man, that was well said. The first part, definitely. It sounds like I wrote it for you. I promise you.
You did write it for me. Thanks for sending that to
me. Say this. But the second part is so true. Community is so important. And I think we're all learning that. And we all have our own communities with school and church and elsewhere. But the footwear industry, and you're proof positive of this, Bill, it is a special community.
It's special.
I'm grateful to be a part of it. And I'm grateful to know you, my friend. So thank you for being on the program today.
Yeah, I haven't seen, Matt, across my other consumer verticals yet, that kind of camaraderie. I know that we just lost Bob Campbell, right? But guys like him are unique, and there's plenty of other people that are unique in our industry, and that brotherhood that maintains through those divides as you even leave the business, the people. But reach out and talk to people. And I'll tell you, Matt, you tell anybody in your membership, if they want to be on that webinar next Tuesday around consumer spend, you know, I'm happy to give you the information. Sign up. Again, it's just may or may not be useful. It's just another set of information. But you guys bringing information access to people has been above and beyond everybody else. So congrats.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Folks, this has been another edition of Kicks Over Coffee. If you want information on that webinar, shoot us an email at info@fvra.org, and we'll be sure to hook you up with Bill and his team. But in the meantime, we look forward to continue to provide these kinds of conversations for you to digest and to think about and analyze. And if there are folks that you think we should be having on this program, please let us know. And in the meantime, cheers, enjoy your favorite brew tonight, whether it's alcoholic or not, whether it keeps you awake all night or not. And we'll see you next time.